you're taking this all much too personally. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And so emotional. My name is Shahir Dowd.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film War for the Planet of the Apes.
I think you should enunciate every single verb clearly.
War
for
the planet
of
the
apes.
Apes.
Ooh. And I love, I know we're not jumping into the review right away, but I love at the beginning of this film, they like reiterate each of the titles. Rise.
I thought
Dawn,
it was clever.
War.
I thought it was clever. It was a clever little fun bullshit
we'll
color
talk about
game.
that
Sure.
eventually. How you been?
I'm all right. I've been, a little busy. It's summertime, Shahir.
It's hot as balls.
It's
in this
hot.
room.
It's so hot right now, and it's not just because you have the two sexiest motherfucking movie reviewers on the face of the planet you never get to see.
Wait, yeah, are we talking about our actual looks or just our voices? Like the image you conjure when you...
Yeah, no, not actually how we look, just how we sound. That
because we
sort of
both look terrible.
that buttery. Well, right now we do. We're just dripping. You just ate a gyro, and I just shoved a huge fucking chicken salad in my face. So, or just
what
salad
do you
with
think?
chicken.
What do you think is the best representation of our respective voices? Like,
if we had to cast ourselves in Hollywood?
Yeah, just the voice. Like, say if we were doing like an animation where we were the voices and they had to draw an image around us.
Oh, that's interesting. Let's save that for a Patreon goal one day.
Who would they model us on?
Who would we? Oh, wow.
I feel like you would be like a Punisher type, something like angry. You'd be like was it Al Frank or
Thank you?
You know, like the character from Inside Out, the angry character from Inside Out.
You talking Lewis Black?
Yeah, Lewis Black. You'd be like a Lewis Black. I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. You would be. Oh man, you would probably be something British.
Yeah.
Just because accents, they all sound the same.
I feel like I'd be like a Legolas or something like that. No, too baritone for Legolas.
Yeah.
Maybe like a Arrow. No.
You're more of a. Like Cumberbatch's younger brother.
Cumberbatch's ugly younger brother.
Yeah. So that's it. So that's
it's
what we
elementary,
look like.
my dear.
Yeah.
Watson.
Yeah. So it's been good. Theaters have been nice, but there's air conditioning.
It's good to get into the air conditioning a little bit, right? But this is a follow up from like something that we talked about last week, right?
True.
Like watching a movie at home on Netflix versus watching a movie at the theater.
And guys, before we get into this war, there's a different war going on, and that is for your movie-going dollar.
Well, and this is going to come to play this week with the release of Dunkirk coming out. Christopher Nolan wants you to go see this movie in IMAX, pay the premium ticket price, and see it in the full format range if possible.
Sure.
He's making distinctly theater-going experiences. And Matt, what's the article we're talking about?
We're talking about, it was an IndieWire?
IndieWire article this week.
Basically interviewed Christopher Nolan, and he went ham on fucking Netflix, basically saying how he thinks their model is entirely broken, and he doesn't understand it, and like, why are you actively trying to destroy movie theaters and all of this sort of, I mean, I love Christopher Nolan and I love his work, but he sounded like a curmudgeon. Just a world-class curmudgeon. And there's a couple, I mean, there's like, obviously in any sort of movie culture, there's 50 articles written about the article.
Right.
And a couple interesting ones. One of them that I really sort of gravitated to was actually, I believe it was on The Verge, and it made a couple interesting things because they was talking a lot about Okja, and the release of that, and how Bong Joon-ho wouldn't have been able to make the movie he wanted to make for the amount of money that Netflix gave him had he gone through the studio system.
Right.
And then it got into this whole thing. It's like, oh, well, I guess so as long as you're the most critically beloved blockbuster director in 40 years and a man and white, you'll be fine in Hollywood.
I agree with that.
And but I mean, look, and so and I don't think Christopher Nolan definitely is coming from. And I'm not calling out. Well, it probably has a little bit, obviously, in its roots. I was going to say privilege.
Say what you got to say, man. Preach.
It comes from a point of privilege, says the white guy in the room. But like, it's super just like, it's disheartening to hear him talk like this. And it's just sort of like, wow, man, like you are a god when it comes to making stuff on the screen. It seems like you can understand a lot of different perspectives, but when it comes to outside of what you're making, it seems like your view is incredibly narrow and askew.
I mean, look, I fundamentally I agree with the Netflix No. Here's the thing. I think that it's not Netflix that are destroying the movie going experience. It's movie theaters that are destroying the movie going experience.
They're not offering anything that's better.
No, they haven't. And I think it was.
Let's go to 4DX.
Who's the Napster founder? Parker. Someone Parker. I forget his name. He was played by Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, we know him.
In the Social Network.
The Napster guy.
And I think his quote was, "Look, movie theaters haven't innovated in the last 40 years. They've basically been offering the same product. So." And they're charging more for it. The experience is getting worse because they're not quality control checking everything. Like I went to a screening. My screening of Wonder Woman was out of focus, like legitimately out of photo, out of focus. And I went and complained, and nothing happened. And you're dealing with a chain of people that don't care about that experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to. I remember the last time I complained was when I saw Under the Skin, which was just a completely washed out print for a really gorgeous looking movie. And I was like, I paid $15 for this thing, and it's terrible. And the seats are terrible, and I generally think the movie theaters are ruining the movie experience, with a couple of exceptions. I think places like the Alamo Drafthouse, Nighthawk, they are. I wouldn't say innovating. They're not.
But they're doing it right. They're ensuring the experience that Christopher Nolan in his mind thinks all movie going experiences should be. And it's funny. I would just love to. Christopher Nolan hasn't been in a general audience he hasn't been to the Times Square theater sitting with the plebes in a long ass time.
Not true.
So. Really?
Yeah, not true. In that same interview, he talks about going to La La Land 3 times in the movies.
But where?
As a general audience film. People don't recognize Christopher Nolan.
No, but listen to what I'm saying. Where did he go?
He went to a general audience theater. He wanted to see it with an audience.
Okay, you're not following what I'm saying. What city? What town?
LA.
Yeah, that's different. He probably went to a very nice theater in LA. I'm saying, when has he gone to an actual movie theater with people that are destroying other audience members actively destroying the movie theater experience? Like, I don't think.
But let's break down your argument here. What are you saying? Is it the audience that are destroying the movie experience?
It's everything.
Or is
First
it
of all, the theaters are not innovating. I agree with everything you said. Right. There's also some blame to be put on us, the audience.
But you can't quantify like people being assholes ruining the movie experience. That's just, you might get a great audience one time, you might not get.
This is what I'm saying. The Alamo Drafthouse, as we just talked about, you can fix this problem. You know what you have to do to fix the problem? Run a tight ship. You know what every major movie theater chain wants to do to save money? Not run a tight ship. Not run quality control. Not run people to eject people actively if they're talking or ruining the experience. So that to me is like, oh, you want this, and I'm not saying Christopher Nolan, I'm just saying the theater industry in general wants this premium. It's theatrical, it's premium. But 90% of theaters that we go to, that experience does not exist anymore. And I can get a more honest, a more intimate, and to be quite honest, better sound and visuals most of the time at my house.
Right. I completely agree with that. I just don't think you can quantify your audience sucking. Now, I think Alamo Drafthouse is trying to speak to a specific film going audience, and like your AMCs and Regals in Times Square don't want to like shut out, teenagers who want to spend the afternoon in a movie theater, or they don't want to shut out like a parent. My screening of War of the Planet of the Apes had a baby in it.
But I'm just getting a little confused. Are you defending people bringing children or lighting up their phones or talking during a film?
What I'm saying is you can't quantify for that being the failure of movies. I
can quantify as it contributing to the. I don't want to, and this I can only speak for me, but I imagine this is true of people who love movies. Most likely, all of you guys listening to the audience who actually really enjoy film. You're not gonna go if a viewing experience is increasingly shitty at a place due to the clientele only. Let's say movie theaters were great, but the clientele was just garbage and they do nothing. You're going to stop going.
But my point here is, how do you quantify that? Like, sometimes you're going to get a great audience, sometimes you're going to get a terrible
Alamo
audience.
Drafthouse, I've never had a bad audience.
But it depends on where you're going and the time of day and
we're saying the same thing but differently. I'm saying quality control your fucking shit. Quality control the people. I would say most of the time 60%-ish people are there to watch the movie and shut the fuck up in a general audience screening. Okay?
You have a low opinion of humanity, right?
Yeah, 100%. So what I'm saying is, we're literally seeing profitable solutions to how to do this. It's just, it literally comes down from corporate fuckery and laziness that they don't do this. Now, should there be options for people to go to theaters that want to talk and text and whatever? Sure. If you know that, like, this is the talking movie or the cell phone movie, and this is the one where you shut the fuck up. But it's not coming down to choice, and it's not coming down to it. I'm going to wrap it up. I hate it when in the theater industry is sort of just like, oh, it's just Netflix and home theater and it's like, no, you're not providing the service that you once did. And in addition to that, there are now outside factors. People are, I would say, statistically ruder now. There's more electronics in your hand now than it was. So it's just a whole bunch of shit rolling downhill.
What I'm saying here is that the problem isn't those outside factors. The problem is the theater itself hasn't innovated enough to give you a premium experience that justifies the price of the ticket.
Yeah, of course, but I'm saying we can't be blameless as a society either.
Right. I guess.
This is what I'm curious about you. This is a question. What do you consider? Because you keep saying the premium theater experience for you, Shahir Daud. What is the premium theater experience?
I want a clean theater. Pristine picture, pristine sound. And I want those things to be better than I can offer at home.
And you don't care about the audience?
I mean, the thing is, I can't hold the theater chain accountable if I happen to get a shitty audience.
But
or
you
if I happen
because Alamo Drafthouse has proven that you can.
But again, Alamo Drafthouse does that for a very specific niche kind of
Would
audience.
you rather a perfectly quiet audience or people talking?
And they charge more for that. What I'm talking about is like my general, and it's ridiculous that the price is $15 for a movie right now. But for my my general walk into the movie theater experience, I want quality control in terms of the sound, and I want the experience of when I used to go to the movies and there used to be a projectionist who cared about the lighting quality of the film and whether the reels were run together correctly, or whether there's a famous story about when Christopher Nolan was screening Interstellar, that he would go to, I think it was the Lincoln Square IMAX, which is where everyone should go see Dunkirk, by the way, and he would watch the movie in row 1, row 5, row 10, row 15, row 20, and he would quality control. Like, he wants the experience to be the same all the way through. Yeah. And I think that sort of thing isn't happening because capitalism and the way in which we distribute movies just doesn't allow for that. And Netflix is a really great alternative. If you're like, and my argument is the kind of the family dad kind of argument about this, which is like, if I want to take my kids, my wife to the movies,
$100.
It's like $100. And am I getting the value of $100 at the movies that is much better than the $7 I spend a month at Netflix? And I don't think it is. So my thing here is I don't think Netflix is the problem.
No.
And the other side
Netflix is a solution.
And the other side of it is the argument that came up earlier this year with Rottentomatoes, with the argument around, I think it was films like Pirates of the Caribbean. People were talking about, and Baywatch in particular, they were talking about how Rotten Tomatoes is ruining the movie experience by swaying audience members away from movies that might ordinarily be entertaining and fun. And the thing there is like, no, it's not the audience it's not Rotten Tomatoes that's doing this. It's you guys making bad movies. It's making movies that people don't emotionally care about. It's making movies that don't resonate. And I will say,
and now people are catching them and calling you out on your shit. And now people aren't getting basically tricked into going to the theater as much because there's research available.
There's research available, and it's also like, do I want to see the 6th Pirates of the Caribbean movie? It's like, I don't. I want to see something new and interesting. And I will praise Christopher Nolan for being a guy who is trying to innovate. I will say, Christopher Nolan's obsession with IMAX is admirable, but I feel like there's something that happens, and I don't know whether it's a technical or financial or what it is, but this notion that a film can be partially shot on IMAX and then jump in between formats, if there's anything that ruins a cinematic experience, it's when the format jumps all over the show. And I didn't see the latest Transformers movie last night, but apparently that was an issue with that as well. Is that
wasn't its only issue? I didn't even see it.
No, of course, yeah. Well, among other things, I as much as I didn't like Peter Jackson's 48 frames per second experiment, I admired the chutzpah for committing to it.
And here's the difference. He committed to it for a series of films.
Yeah.
He didn't say, I'm only ever gonna. This is the format. This is what everyone should be doing all the time. This is the only way to experience a film that I'm going to make. He never said that. Could he keep making them? Sure.
Yeah.
But Christopher Nolan won't shoot digital. I mean, that's that's preference, whatever.
Yeah.
And now he's chastising different ways people for either enjoyable or financially wise are being entertained.
Well, to add some nuance, not to like put words into Christopher Nolan's mouth. His point is that he doesn't understand why Netflix wants to do simultaneous releases. Like he praised Amazon Prime for having movies that they would put in a movie theater, then allow for distribution. I think there's a 90-day window on those. So he's not against seeing a movie streaming. He's against a competing force actively destroying the way that he wants to make a movie and have people see his movie. I think it's the way he wants people to see his movie.
But this is the problem, and this is when, and I hope I never get there, and I'm sure I do this sort of same thing that Christopher Nolan is doing with filmmaking, with other things in my life, but we're all going to become old men and old women and old people.
He's not that old either.
I know, but this is the kind of shit that old people say. This is the kind of shit that's like, no, the old way is better. It's the only way you're going to experience this thing. You don't know what you're fucking talking about. Like when
I think you're mischaracterizing what he's saying.
But he's saying he thinks that the way that Netflix releases the thing in the theater and in on streaming is ludicrous, and he doesn't understand it. What doesn't he get about it? It's not profitable. People are allowed to see the film outside of.
It's exactly the conversation that happened at Cannes when Okja played there.
Also curmudgeon-y.
I think his concern is that people aren't seeing it in the best possible format immediately. But I think the flaw in his argument, and I don't, Christopher Nolan, I don't think is a man for jumping on a soapbox and shouting things. I think he's trying to make a reasoned argument. But I think the flaw in his
it's hard to tell in an article.
Yeah.
It is hard to tell because they write it in a certain way.
And obviously, and the thing is, this comment was probably one of many things he said in passing. Like who cares? Like everyone says things in junkets that people mischaracterize, and it makes for a good clickbait story.
Tell you, probably more people will go see Dunkirk because of this thing. It's very calculated.
Maybe. I mean, he's advocating for people to go see Dunkirk in a movie theater. I think the flaw in his argument is that. The rationalization is that if you're given a choice to see a movie, if you had a choice to go see the movie Okja in a movie theater that was right next door to you, or sit at home and watch it in a movie theater, I think the flaw is that
mix those a little bit, but I know what you're saying.
Like he's worried that people will choose the sit at home thing.
Why is he worried? For two reasons. There's the public reason, and then there's a subconscious reason I don't even know if he realizes he's worried about it for.
I think the reason is that he wants people to appreciate cinema as a theatrical experience, which is how he envisions it. I think, and what he's concerned about is that people are inherently missing out. Now, I don't think that's an issue. I think Jurassic Park on VHS holds up as good as Jurassic Park at a movie theater. It's not obviously the same thing, but the movie stands up. And I think, and Christopher Nolan is a filmmaker whose films stand up on home release. It's actually ironically, it's one of the keys to his success is that he is a filmmaker. And I think not since Stanley Kubrick is a filmmaker given so much creative freedom as Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
Well, because his movies are critically, he reaches that nexus that few filmmakers do. They're critically acclaimed and they make money.
Yeah. But so that's all true. Everything you said is 100% true. But there is a sideline of he's the poster boy for Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers will let him do whatever he wants. He's one of the only few directors in that studio system that can do that, like you said, because he's proven that he makes money and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So if the thing, and not that I don't think he's like sitting up and worrying at night. I think he's just going about his life making great movies.
Yeah.
But it's hard to not look at it from a cynical side, at least for me, because it just sounds like an old person's argument. I know he's not old, but it sounds like an old person's argument railing against something that will eventually lose him either prestige, influence, or money, which it doesn't have to, but it's just sort of like it's the way that iTunes changed music. It's the way and there's something I do want to say about the I think Netflix releasing films in for instance the theater and at home is great.
Yeah.
Because say Dunkirk was a Netflix film.
Yeah.
Okay. And say Christopher Nolan didn't have this interview. Instead, he's had another interview still just saying, go see this in the theater. Like, yeah, you can watch it again at home.
Yeah.
Do that. Go see it in the theater. I really think it's the only way to appreciate it and blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, fuck yeah, Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
And I'd go see that movie. Now, because I agree with what he's saying.
Yeah.
But we, again, are in interesting spaces where we are financially sound to go see a bunch of movies.
Yeah.
When you go alone, it's fine. But I mean, and when
I go alone all the time.
but you know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
even said, like a family of 4 is going to cost $100.
Yeah.
You're getting a subpar
It's financially makes more sense to see it on Netflix.
Yeah. So you're now going against quality
Yeah.
of the view of viewers' experience versus quantity of eyeballs seeing your film and potentially enjoying it. And I mean, Netflix is now giving the option kind of for both.
Yeah.
And to have that visceral, like, no, like that, it rubbed me the wrong way.
I don't think it's a no, like you're saying, like you're characterizing.
It's like he's shaking his fist at the sky, Shahir.
But like, so for example, Steven Soderbergh is releasing a film later this year that's going to be released on Amazon Prime, Logan Lucky, or Lucky Logan, I think it's called, which is going to star Channing Tatum and Daniel Craig.
Is there a trailer for that?
Yeah, there's a trailer.
I think I've seen it.
I have not watched it because I want to see that movie. I also fortunately got a very brief opportunity to meet and talk to Steven Soderbergh a couple of weeks
How's
ago.
he doing?
Great. He's a lovely man, and he endured my. I know it's one of those moments where you know way too much about a person, and you don't want to like show it.
Yeah.
But like I know and have obsessed about this man's career, and to like shake his hand, pat him on the back, and say hi was like great. But I was like, I quickly exited the conversation because I was like, I know if I stay here for too long, I'm going to say something that's like super embarrassing.
You exhibited self-control and realized that he's another human being that probably has to deal with nerds
People
like
like
us
me,
all
like,
the damn time.
But so interestingly, he's got
Empathy, Shahir.
Yeah. He's releasing Logan Lucky, which is going to be on Amazon Prime. It's going to, have a theatrical release, 90-day window. Simultaneously, it just came out today. He shot a film on an iPhone that he's going to release like within around the same time. He was like,
awesome.
I want to embrace. Now he's done this his entire career. He did a film called Full Front. He was one of the first people who really pushed for digital video.
Yeah,
and he's actually, I think. And I believe he shot the first Red movie, which I think was Shay. He bought a Red camera. This is a fun side story. He bought the first Red camera, used it on Shay as his own DP, then lent those cameras out to David Fincher in order to shoot The Social Network.
Huh.
So his particular
the more
camera,
you know.
Yeah,
the star just flew over my head.
But so he's releasing, and there was a film that came out that was shot on an iPhone last year, Tangerine, by I think the director was named Sean Baker, that I think was a pretty outstanding film. And I think there are people. The curmudgeonly part of this is. It doesn't sound like Christopher Nolan is the guy who's going to embrace like shooting a movie on an iPhone.
No, he's going to use all of his power to go out kicking and screaming for as long as he can.
And it seems like the curmudgeonly part of it is, like Christopher Nolan's movies are fairly expensive, and they're part of a classical, like studio system kind of operation,
Sure.
Like everyone's paid above the line kind of thing. People make money on his movies. I think he's coming from that kind of world. He's not going to, I don't think he's going to pine, but to be fair, he is trying to like push that world into a more prestigious way. I think the better choice is something like what Steven Soderbergh is doing, which is pushing that world into a cheaper way that is more accessible.
One sounds like a young man's argument and one sounds like an old man's argument. And I think the ages of the two men in question are vastly different.
No, they're not. Steven Soderbergh and Christopher Nolan are roughly the same age. Steven Soderbergh might be older.
I thought he would. That's what I meant. But his argument sounds young and Christopher Nolan sounds old.
I don't think it has to do with age. I think it's just to me, it's a historical understanding that cinema in some form is a technological game. And, like the classic story is the Edison and the Wright brothers, the reason why Hollywood is out in California is that Edison tried to patent cinema technology. Cinema historians, please email and write me in if I've got the names wrong on this, but tried to patent cinema technology. So studios set up shop in Hollywood.
Patent?
Yeah, to patent it.
Oh, thank you.
Patent is how I say it.
I'm very patient.
Yeah, patent, not patient.
I know.
So studios moved all the way to Hollywood to try and avoid paying the patent fee, and then tried to innovate in technology. It's the VHS Betamax story. You know, technology moves with
Blu-ray or HD DVD for you youngins.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Netflix is here to stay, and I'm not just saying that because I own Netflix stock, but I'm just, you know, like I think the way in which I've seen Netflix transform over the last few years,
from when they were trying to split their company and call it like Flickster or whatever, and then like those crazy emails from a couple years back, and you're like, oh, this company's imploding, to then get to where it is now is an insane story.
So I'm all for the Netflix experience, but I'm also you know, a self-professed cinephile who, if Christopher Nolan says the best format to see my movie is in IMAX, where I'm gonna have to pay $23 for a ticket,
I will believe that, and I just wish his statements were more focused on him and his movies and not sounding like it's chastising a different type of way people can ingest entertainment.
I will give him a pass just in the fact that I think this is a clickbaity article that's come out in the wake of like that publicity
could be
around
100%. And you know what? He might have said all this shit because he's a very smart man, knowing it would get these conversations, and we've said the word Dunkirk like 10 times by now. So he's doing his job.
Exactly. The clickbait has worked.
It worked. We did it. We are
sufficiently baited.
Isn't it funny how we're the bottom feeders? Like wordless, like the movie news, and then like
that's how they would characterize us in film. And Finding Nemo, the little crabs that crawl across the bottom of the ocean, I'd be one and you'd be the other.
But you know what? We also clean up the shit. We make sure the ocean is good and clean for all of the bigger, stronger fish.
You know, maybe I might be one of those swans, like one of the what are the birds up above? They're like mine,
pelican,
pelicans. Yeah, swans.
We're not pelicans.
I might be a pelican. The Pelican Brief. Julia
Anyway, Shahir, if people wanted to brief us, where could they do so? Is there information you could give?
Yeah, well, please write us in if I got the Edison LA Hollywood history story right, but I believe you can email us. I don't believe this. I know this. You can email us at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com.
I have faith in that.
Yeah, I believe. And you could hit us up on Twitter at onlymoviepod. We are loving the emails and feedback we get.
I had so much fun reading them like as a bulk last time.
Someone quoted you and retweeted something you said on the podcast last week, and I think it was your comment. I haven't got the tweet in front of me, but it was along the lines of if all the scientists and artists are on one side of the conversation, that's the side I want to be on. Yeah. And quote Only Movie Podcast. And I retweeted that a few times.
Nice. Well, thank you, person who quoted me.
Yeah, Matt. See, maybe one day you could be on a IndieWire article saying like, "This is what I think about science."
Maybe I can get on an IndieWire article and then never work in Hollywood because I've said a lot of shit on this show.
Yeah, I know. I always worry about that.
But you know what? Look, I am who I am, and I ain't scared.
Yeah, you should be.
Why? I got Netflix at my back. I got Netflix at my back right now. No? Huh?
Oh, huh? Nice.
See, that was a shout out to Shahir's new music video.
Wind at My Back by Pyramids. Thanks, Matt.
Maybe I'll do a parody of that.
Yeah, do it. You should see that on the biggest screen possible. It's not playing in any movie theater.
Not on your iPhone?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my God. But okay.
Actually, that's an interesting concern that I have a lot now with work I make, is we will export it for the iPhone and watch it on an iPhone. And editing decisions change when you watch something on an iPhone.
I'm making a television show that is now cut down to 2 to 4.5 minutes currently for a major vendor that will air on Facebook.
Yeah.
And so the times they are a-changing.
They are a-changing.
And I am not going to fight it. I'm going to evolve and not die.
So you're going to watch the next Christopher Nolan movie entirely on Facebook Live.
You know what? I probably should. I probably should watch it like streamed to a Raspberry Pi onto like an 11-inch tablet just to piss him off.
It's so weird because I remember when you used to pirate movies, and kids don't do this. I've never done this before. But when you used to pirate movies back in the day off like a Napster or something like that, and you would watch it on your
LimeWire.
Yeah.
I never did it either. I had college roommates that did it.
And you couldn't get an HD version, so you'd have to watch it on your monitor, shitty quality and stuff. I wonder if now people pirate like big movies like Pirates of the Caribbean and watch them on their iPhone on their commutes, you know? Like
100%. I've seen that. I have seen people watching films on their phone that came out 2 days ago. Yeah. And I'm looking over, I'm like, motherfucker.
Yeah, but then this is also on a subway system where someone will be walking around selling pirated DVDs of a movie that came out 2 days ago.
Actually, I haven't seen any DVD salesmen in a long time. I have seen a lot of people jerking off.
Oh wow!
But
there you go.
it's the same thing.
We used to one of the offices I used to work at used to have the DVD person come up every Friday and like show us the new movies that they were willing to sell us.
If only computers had optical drives anymore.
But so that if you watched War of the Planet of the Apes on your iPhone, this is going to be an interesting experience. Maybe you had a different experience to us.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess my history with the Planet of the Apes franchise is very little.
Okay.
I've seen.
Wait, what about the original?
I've seen some of them.
Okay.
I never liked them.
Okay.
And it's not that I didn't. It's not that I disliked them. I saw the campy fun, and I liked the idea behind it. But there's something, and this is another conversation. I'm sure we're going to get off at a tangent eventually. But the world never grabbed me.
Okay.
And I'm not talking about visuals that just. It's like I'm talking about the collective world of the story and the characters and the visuals and everything never grabbed me. So when the new ones came out, I did not.
You weren't interested.
No, and I haven't actually seen
any of this. Is going to be interesting because
the other two films, Rise or Dawn
You're
and
Star
Rise.
Warsing this. Imagine if I came in and just did Return of the Jedi and not Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. So I mean, okay, so going in to this film, I knew that I would not know what's going on, which is why I appreciated the little text thing that happened. I was like, oh, cool. And also to further my not familiarness, I'm not that familiar with Matt Reeves outside of Cloverfield.
And did you see Let the Right One In or
I wanted to.
What was his version called? I've seen snippets of his version, and I've seen the original Swedish version, Let the Right One In. And oddly enough, he made a film like back in the noughts called The Pallbearer with David Schwimmer and Gwyneth Paltrow, which I have seen, strangely enough. And I remember it as a dinky little, like it was the point at which when every Friends star was like taking their hiatus from the show to like do one indie movie. Ba, 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 ba.
That was the clap for Friends.
If someone told you that life was gonna be this, I've already got it wrong.
Okay.
Ba, 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 ba.
Go back to Schwimmer. Go back to Schwimmer.
So Matt Reeves has jumped the proverbial fence from small romantic comedies into and like starting with Cloverfield, moving on to Let the Right. I think his version was called Let Me In. I think it was, yeah. And then on to his remake, he did the second Planet of the Apes movie. The first one was done by Rupert Sanders, I want to say, or oh boy, I should look this up.
The Colonel's son?
Yeah, Rupert Sanders, who, did a fairly serviceable job, but I think it's fair to say that the reason that the Planet of the Apes franchise is the Planet of the Apes franchise is because of what Matt Reeves did to it. Rupert Wyatt was the director.
Gotcha.
So here's a fun little history of Shahir thing that I like to do every now and again.
You were almost the Dr.
Yeah, I was almost an ape.
Yeah.
I have a sneaking suspicion, and this has been intimated by my family, that the very first movie I ever saw as a child was a 16mm print of Planet of the Apes that my grandfather had. He had a projector with the actual original film. This is dating me, showing how old I am, but I was living in Fiji at the time, and we didn't have VHS quality, VHS technology. So
Christopher Nolan wouldn't have wanted you to watch that film.
So I watched. I believe I may have been 3 or 4 years old, maybe even younger, and I was sat in front of a light shimmering on a wall watching some apes jump around. It may be the first film. I've never revisited them. I've never gone back to them. I've caught like one or two of them playing at night and watched, like half an hour of it or something like that. So it's never really grabbed me. I heard, like when Rise of the Planet of the Apes came out, there was a much fanfare for that movie. People were like, wow, this is really surprisingly a great movie. I think that was the thing. And I think the thing that people were drawn to is a couple of things. One is the technology, the work that Andy Serkis, Weta Digital has done. That has done to render Caesar and the
and
apes. Company. However, I gotta admit, I really didn't like that movie. I thought the thing about it was a movie where the apes were wonderfully rendered, but the human story was so pretty atypical.
Who was the bad guy in that? Who was the actor?
It was David Oyelowo was the bad guy, but James Franco was in it, and he was the good guy.
You're talking the first one.
Yeah, the very first one.
Sorry.
And I watched it, and I was like, why is everyone falling in love with this movie? I think it's genuinely not good, save for scenes, the rendering of the apes and the rendering of the apes.
Should it have been called Rendering of the Apes?
Yeah, the rendering of the apes. And like even to the point where I think Malfoy from Harry Potter was in it, and he does like, get your hands off me, you damn dirty ape, replaying the Charlton Heston line. And it is awful. It is just bad. So I was not a fan of that movie. This maybe the way to look at this is, and I'm worried that I'm kind of like being a contrarian, like my approach to these movies is being a contrarian. But like, so I went into the second one just kind of like someone said, hey, let's go check this out. And my mind was blown. I was like, wow, they really took what I thought was a pretty
shitty
bad to average movie and turned it into something pretty masterful. And I was
bit
like,
of a stumble, was it?
Yeah, and Matt, and I was like, holy shit, Matt. I think what he found was Matt Reeves had found he had stripped the film back to being what was great in the first film, and and that's what he made the second film about.
Gotcha.
I will say that I have some thoughts about this third one.
Sure. Well, do you want me to read the movie description?
Yeah.
From the IMDb's?
The DMBI.
They're saying the B's are going away, but these IMDb's, they're just sticking around. That was the worst joke I've ever told on this podcast. Holy shit. Anyway.
I think it's on par with some of your bad jokes.
Shut up. After the apes suffer unimaginable losses, Caesar wrestles with his darker instincts and begins his own mythic quest to avenge his kind. Mythic quest.
Avenge. Mythics. Yeah, he's going to take some like Hiawatha and like do like a vision quest.
Okay.
Matt, I'm less interested in my opinion, which is unusual. I'm very, very curious to hear your thoughts on this film coming in cold.
Okay. Well, first of all, as we've mentioned, the ape work was top notch. I've never
Is that a thing? The ape work?
The ape work. Never have I seen more amazing CG anthropomorphic apes since, I don't know, Super Monkey Ball 2 on the GameCube.
How about since Gollum on Lord of the Rings? Same actor,
in all seriousness, Andy Serkis is a fucking poet with like his mocap and his voice, and it is fuck, like to have, I wish I had a pinky's worth of his talent in my entire fucking being. Like it's nuts. Mm-hmm. And the CG artists obviously behind it as well. It's just shout
out to everyone at Weta Digital.
You do not think about these apes not being real.
Right.
And it's interesting because look, maybe a zoologist could probably watch it and be like, oh, of course they're not real. Like, I think this is where my lack of knowledge about how apes look and move helps me, because the uncanny valley doesn't hit me because I'm filling in the blanks myself.
Right.
And it's so good because I know what an ape looks like. This looks exactly like an ape to my brain. And then they're supposed to be super smart anyway. So like, cool.
Yeah.
So that, first of all, I just have to say, I cannot give them a credit enough. And if you're a visual effects nut, you should. That's worth the price of admission, I feel, alone to see this.
Okay.
That's
is this where the positive stops?
Look, it's not. I'll say straight up, it's not a bad movie.
I'm just curious. Like, did you feel lost when you?
No, not at all. Because it's simple as shit.
Yeah.
But it stumbles a lot. And for a movie that's supposed to be the culmination of these three, called War for the Planet, that's the four of the words in the title.
Yeah.
It felt so claustrophobic to me. I know that the middle of the second act and the third act are meant to, but it's supposed to, they keep referencing the world and this is happening. And I don't need to see it, but again, oh, we're going to talk about Mad Max? You fucking right we are, because this is the only podcast about movies. Mad Max's world, you only saw a couple different locations, a couple different roads, but it felt sprawling the way it was done and told and just edited and everything. This to me felt so claustrophobic. It takes place in, honestly, 3 locations. I know there's more, but like the 3 that kind of are in the middle feel exactly the same.
Right.
And that kind of threw me for a bit. Also, and I know we don't have to get into this because I don't think it's important, but the plan from Woody Harrelson's Colonel made no fucking sense. And I understand you're supposed to be a zealot, but then you have to buy in that all these his army are also zealots and also incredibly fucking stupid. And maybe that's a byproduct of the gas that's actually making them stupid. Who the fuck knows? There's too many weird little plot bullshits that I was like, at first I was like, maybe this is because I haven't seen the other films. And by the end, I was assured that it was just sloppy writing.
Okay.
And then finally, so the Colonel wants to kill Caesar because sure. And then it's to stop the disease, but he said they already have it. And then they want to build a wall of bricks and stone and trees to stop another human army that has a shit ton of helicopters. What the fuck? Like, so the human aspect of this movie is dumb as shit. And so, and I know they have to paint them you can make evil smart. This was just not smart.
Yeah.
And you don't ever root for a human. I think that's hilarious. They did the interesting story thing, and we're going to get into a little bit of spoilers here, is Woody Harrelson is not like the leader of the humans. He's the leader of a zealous faction of humans that the rest of humanity, so the story would tell you, is actually banding together to destroy. Now, the rest of humanity, they say, don't like apes anyway.
Yeah.
But not to the level that he does. So you're left with this, like, you want the apes to win, and the movie tricks you, and then with sort of at the end a wave of its hand, which we'll talk about, like the apes kind of win the earth, but they didn't do it. Like, it's weird. And I know it has to get to a certain place, but fuck, I was just like, if this movie's VFX were not so enthralling, I would have been bored out of my GDM.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, that's what those are sort of my initial thoughts.
Okay.
What about you? What's going on?
I am mostly in agreement with you, and we are mostly in opposition to the critical consensus on this film, which has got a 94 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Insane.
And 94% War of the Planet of the Apes combines breathtaking special effects and a powerful, poignant narrative to conclude this rebooted trilogy on a powerful and truly blockbuster note. I have to admit, I found, and this is the part of me that worries that I'm being a contrarian, but I genuinely, and maybe my expectations were high coming off Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I listened to another podcast, I believe it was the Slash Filmcast this week. Or
what do they do?
I don't know what they do.
Oh.
It was just kind of playing in the background as I was like walking past something.
Got you.
And they mentioned the word movie, but I don't think they're a movie podcast.
Of course. Yeah, no, I mean, how could they be?
But I like the way that they characterized it, which was this might have been better titled as Skirmish for the Planet of the Apes.
Yes! Okay, maybe there could be another movie podcast, because that's
I would have
very
loved
smart.
to have taken credit for that joke, but I'm not going to.
That's very smart.
And
Skirmish for the Scuffle.
A scuffle for the Planet of the Apes. But okay, so a couple of things off the bat. Yes, it goes without saying that the work that Andy Serkis and the entire team of digital artists that have worked tirelessly to create both human characters, anthropomorphized characters, and close to what we understand of ape behavior in one seamless blend is nothing short of miraculous.
Yeah.
It is a modern marvel. It is the dream of the original Rod Sterling piece, I'm sure.
Yeah, and if you want a little bit more proof, even just from our ears, I'd be curious if you agree with this too, Shahir. There's scenes where apes are just talking to each other, because Caesar's the only one that speaks English regularly.
Right.
The rest of them sign and do monkey noises.
Yeah.
And there are scenes where monkeys are just having conversations just like that, and you're interested in what the monkeys are saying.
Yeah.
And to do that, and I'm interested in on a human conversational level.
Yeah.
So just that alone is like, holy shit, these VFX artists did an immaculate job.
And I think even Andy Serkis himself has said this is, like, while he is the heart and soul of the performance, there's a lot of finessing that goes into creating that character that goes on behind the scenes that an entire army of people get behind. So it goes without, I've just said it, but it goes without saying. One thing I do love about this series as well is the way it reinvented the Planet of the Apes series. It turned our villains of the first a series of movies into our heroes, and I think that was really profoundly interesting and a really unique approach to it. And I think it gave the reboot a reason to exist beyond, hey, let's see if we can bring this franchise back to life. So I was in admiration of that. I too found this ultimately poignant. Look, I admired the intentionality of this film for the most part. I think what Matt Reeves wants to do is make movies where people are having existential, philosophical conversations, and I think he's interested in the reason people go to war, not the war itself. Unfortunately, what happens is at some point he does need to deliver on that title.
It's not the reason for the war for the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. And when he does, it's his execution is wonderful, and he's clearly a great visual stylist, and he will be directing the Batman coming up next. So I'm sure we can look forward to a more.
Is that still happening?
Yep, and he has taken the helm.
Who's Batman?
Ben Affleck still. But Ben Affleck's script has been thrown away, and Matt Reeves has taken over and is rewriting and starting a new script.
I hate when what's his name, Kevin Smith, says something and I get excited about it, and then it becomes a lie.
Like what?
Well, he was saying it was the greatest script he'd ever read, and and for he's so psyched that his friend gets to make this Batman movie and blah blah blah. Which maybe it was true, but I don't fucking.
Who knows? So I think Matt Reeves does a really admirable job, and like you say, moments where the film dips into conversations between apes is simply there's no words to describe how wonderful it is. I think conversations between Maurice and Caesar, the orange ape with I'm not sure what breed of ape that is, are just the heart and soul of the film. And if the film could be an existential diatribe between those two characters, I would be completely happy. If it was just a conversation piece, if it was My Dinner with Andre with Caesar and Maurice, I would be totally on board for that because it's so wonderfully realized. Unfortunately, when this film does start the plot machinations moving forward, things don't make any sense. Questions arise that are beyond the scope of the movie. Like characters, for example, my big thing where I started going, her was the introduction of a little girl.
The plot thread that goes nowhere.
A little blonde-haired, blue-eyed, young, angelic face to give hope to both ape and humankind. Although, and she seems to like wander into this military compound completely unfettered. This military compound is oddly guarded, where like the entire,
where it's not.
Yeah, where like the entire prisoners of war, the ape prisoners of war can just suddenly like disappear and nobody's paying attention. And like
they're having a rally.
Yeah, nobody's paying attention for like 20, 30 minutes after that. Woody Harrelson is kind of riffing on Marlon Brando's Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now, but doing kind of a light version of it that doesn't encapsulate the madness in any way. It encapsulates kind of more of a. There is a really good moment with him, which I think was well written, where the backstory of his character is revealed.
Sure.
But to say that the film doesn't, and this movie's not Apocalypse Now. This will be the second ape movie this year to kind of riff on Apocalypse Now. The other one being Kong Skull Island. To say that they're riffing on Colonel Kurtz misses the kind of depraved madness of Colonel Kurtz. You don't feel like this is a depraved madman. You feel like this is a very dumb man that you shouldn't really respect because he's kind of just leading you into harm's way for no good reason. And his plan, as you said, to ward off an opposing human force is nonsensical, strange, and
Helm's Deep. This ain't.
Yeah, and it also it just undercuts all the great work that was done in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. In that film, you had this sort of like simultaneous apes fighting each other as well as humans fighting each other and fighting apes. Gary Oldman was the sort of ostensible villain in that film, but he was a villain that
human one goes in Cuba.
Cuba. Koba was the bad ape who haunts Caesar in this film.
Not like this bad ape, the tiny bad ape.
Yeah,
in this
played
film.
by Steve Zahn, who I always like.
No. He was great. He was the only time I feel like audiences smiled a bunch.
But I feel like his inclusion was really calculated.
Oh, yeah.
If he wasn't in this film, this would be a pretty sour, dour film.
Yeah.
So his inclusion feels very calculated, even though he actually doesn't have much functional inclusion.
No, he's the comic relief.
Yeah. So look, I think this is an admirable movie, completely undermined by ham-fisted writing. That like really just doesn't work for me. And it's one, like it's that example of we were talking about where like the spectacle, the spectacle here is the ape work, which is subtle and detailed.
Hashtag ape work.
Yeah, and it's not the giant explosions, which I like. I like that's the spectacle.
Yes,
and I like that they're attempting to do a quiet film.
Yeah,
but I think
this didn't make a great one.
Yeah, well, the unfortunate thing is story points don't philosophically line up with what this film is trying to do, and that's the problem. It's not that like I can appreciate when the Avengers gets into a big fisticuff match because that philosophically aligns with what that film is about.
Sure.
The giant explosions at the end of this film don't philosophically align with what this film is.
This is what I kind of wanted to get into. So we all know that, and I'll say me as an example, but all of us, depending on what we're talking about, can get quite fanboyish about whatever we love.
Yeah.
Right. So there are Marvel movies that, for instance, because I love them, I make excuses for, and I can logic my way through problems of the films because I am that invested in the world.
I'm labeling this the C.J. Johnson mode of positive attribution.
Sure. Yeah. So and this is what I find interesting about the way my psychology experiences stories through film.
Right.
In a world that draws me in, that does something correctly, somewhere down the line that pulls at whatever I enjoy.
Yeah.
I will, if it's not a masterpiece or great, I will do the mental work and explain it in a way that not only hopefully I think it's great, but I can be like, no, they meant to sort of do this, whether they did or not. Like, just that's how I do it. I could do that with this film. Really? I could make this whole plot make sense.
Right.
But I don't want to. It didn't draw me in enough for me to make excuses for it. And it didn't and I find there's some meta world building thing that I don't know where I'm going with this, but I found the concept interesting because I know I can do this. I even wrote it on my notes, like the ways I would do this,
right?
But I don't care to.
So, Film Crit Hulk. Have you read Film Crit Hulk? He wrote an interesting article this week about the reason why Spider-Man and I know this will be contentious for you, but why the Marvel universe doesn't resonate for a lot of people in terms of like they're stories that you watch and forget. And I know you're going to disagree with me right away.
I mean, I don't, but I know people do. It's fine.
And his argument is that the character journeys that most of these characters go through are not aren't true journeys. Spider-Man starts as a cocky teenager, he ends as a cocky teenager, and much of the lessons he's learned along the way don't change fundamentally what he's
Use a different one because he does change. He decides to not be cocky anymore, and he tries to slow down and do exactly what he was supposed to do in the beginning.
But he's still jumping around with a suit.
Yeah, but he's doing it in small scale.
Iron Man is still cocky and and arrogant the whole way through, even though the film. And that's what those characters are. Read the Film Crit Hulk article.
Don't agree, but I'll read it.
Yeah, of course you will. And I think the thing here in this film is that it's something that's written in the IMDb quote is that Caesar is forced upon a mythical quest to avenge the death of his wife and child, which is a cliche kind of hero's journey kind of propulsion. It's something that Christopher Nolan does a lot, but
also at the expense of all of his apes.
Yeah, but also I think fundamentally he doesn't at some point. He acknowledges that he can't let go of the anger he has to Woody Harrelson's The Colonel, but I don't think he fundamentally changes in this film. And I think if we want to look at a film that does it, and again, we will become, I think, eventually at some point, the only podcast about Mad Max Fury Road. But if you look at the if you look at the peripheral character of Mad Max in Mad Max Fury Road, his journey is from not caring about people around him and only surviving for himself to ultimately realizing that it is good to work for the bitter good of others. And that is resonant and that works. And it's something that we don't.
Side note, that's Tony Stark's whole arc too. It's just not done as clearly.
I can tell you're hanging on to this. You're
I'm just saying that's exactly what happens to him.
Just hanging on to this one.
But no, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think in the case of War of the Planet of the Apes, that arc of pursuing vengeance and then abandoning it really doesn't hold true because Caesar is not forced to change his realization.
No, in fact, all the onus of his entire like struggle of, oh no, should I be like Kuban and embrace my rage or forgive and forget and sort of move on and grow as an ape is taken away from him via the script, via the Colonel being infected due to a red herring device of a doll that the child, the daughter girl, little kid who tags along with the apes after the apes murder her father, but she's cool because she's
we don't know. We don't necessarily know if it was her father. It might have been someone who's taken her away.
Sure. I mean, if we want to do that gymnastic, I was going to make the leap of if the virus is making the people sort of more primitive, she wouldn't even realize.
Right.
And she was primitive, and that's sort of
but
why.
She did learn sign language.
Yeah, but the apes learned sign language too. Like
I think the device didn't make her more primitive. I think it just robbed her of her speech. It was kind of a tower
again, not clear.
Not clear.
But so Woody Harrelson gets the doll that she eventually gave Caesar, and then so when Caesar's about to go kill Woody Harrelson's Colonel, he's already devolved into like whatever the dumb humans are devolved into, and then.
I don't know if he's devolved. Like he's still making cognizant choices.
He can't speak. He can't have a lot of motor functions, etc. What I'm saying is, what's happened to him, and then instead of, and then it's that weird moral ambiguity nonsense of like, oh, I'm not going to kill you because I learned a lesson, but here, hold this gun and you can kill yourself. And it's
I don't think. No, I don't think he does it. I think the Colonel makes the choice to kill himself. Like he holds, like Caesar is still teetering on the line, and then the Colonel
looks at the gun
and pulls it towards him. And
no. Caesar gives him the gun.
Yeah.
Caesar hands him the fucking gun. You're taking it away from him, but you're literally trying to have your cake, eat it too, and shit out the cake at the entire exact same moment in time, and it's impossible. You need 3 cakes for that.
One chocolate, one vanilla, one strawberry.
Yeah, Neapolitan.
Yeah.
It's just it's things like that break the journey for me because it didn't journey. And the thing I love, and I don't love this, I just think it's silly. So the movie could have been 15 minutes long if Caesar just went with his apes and brought them to the new land and the humans could have wiped each other out and whatever. Although granted, the other thing, sorry. So the 2 human forces clash as the apes escape.
Yeah.
And because of these explosions, the good humans, the better humans, beat the Colonel's humans.
The very dumb explosions, by the way. Why would you have like
all the gas tanks? Because we're in a video game from the late 90s, Shahir.
Exactly.
They might have just shoot the barrels.
The most exposed barrels behind the shouldn't you have built a wall around these barrels?
Whatever, man. Not a wall, right? I don't know. Yeah. So then that triggers, because it's in snow country, an avalanche that then wipes out all of the other human forces that came in, not counting the helicopter pilots and a couple other people, but like, so an avalanche, it's like the story hand swipes away the rest of humanity, and it's like, well, now apes are left.
I mean, I think the mental gymnastics that would be interesting if the film was bitter at dealing with this argument is that the war for the Planet of the Apes is not a war between apes and humans. It's a war between humans.
I would have been more interested in the story if the forces were, say, equal. They were actually the last humans, and the apes were caught in the middle.
Yeah.
And they fucking they attacked and warred each other, not... one force is huge, destroys the other one, and then by sheer luck, nature fucks the other force.
Yeah.
And then you're done.
And, I mean, look,
apes win.
It doesn't.
Caesar die.
It doesn't work. The death of Caesar.
The redemption of Donkey, I didn't give a shit about.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It doesn't quite land. And, like, again, I'm going to pull up an old philosophy lesson. Karl von Clausewitz, the writer of the book on war, who wrote that war is supposed to be a militaristic solution to a political conflict.
Sure.
And the problem is that there in this film, there is no political conflict that makes any sense.
So emotional.
It doesn't work. And it's really unfortunate because this film ultimately undoes the good work of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes for me. And the fact that I hope I'm not a contrarian. But it seems like you and I are on the same page on this one for the first time in a while. The fact that this is a 94 on Rotten Tomatoes
shocks me.
What I worry about that is that I think we get blindsided by the technological aspect of this film, and that's, to me, that was what blindsided people to Rise of the Planet of the Apes being as heralded as it was, is that I think people get blindsided by the fact, oh my God, we can create apes and they look amazing and they're realized very well. And Andy Serkis's performance is exceptional, but he's exceptional in a movie that is not. And I feel like this movie, while stronger than Rise of the Planet of the Apes for me, it takes a step backwards where Dawn of the Planet of the Apes took this 2 steps forward.
So, like, final thoughtiness, should people go see it?
I think if you're a completionist and you want to see where the trilogy ends, then sure. In your case, I would not say you should have seen this.
I would say no.
No, I would have said, hey, go back and watch Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I don't think you need to watch Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
If only to see like the origin story. But no, I like Matt Reeves as a filmmaker. I think though like Movie Bob said this a couple of weeks ago, whether we should be hypercritical of good work that faults in some way. And I think this is one of those cases where this is good work that is faulted by a few things that are truly, in my opinion, bad. And I'm not sure
this movie is the cinematic equivalent of skipping leg day.
Okay.
Meaning you built up your torso, you're looking good, man. Right. You're going to be on that beach, ladies are going to be looking, and then when they look down, it's just little chicken legs, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So you're distracted for a while, and you're like, fuck yeah, that dude's jacked, and then you're like, oh, well, that's not going to support itself for too long.
I don't spend a lot of time looking at dudes on the beach in terms of the...
You should. You can get a lot of analogies by doing that.
Okay, I get you. Matt, your final... I mean, like, you walking into it, like, completely cold.
Yeah, don't see it if you're walking in cold. Again, I have to agree with you. If you're a completionist, go, because there's a lot of good, or if you're really in a technological buff for VFX and work like that, or if you love Andy Serkis. I mean, there's nothing wrong with giving Andy Serkis a paycheck. Yeah, and the VFX artists a paycheck.
If the movie was on Netflix simultaneously, would you opt to watch it there? Or would you just not watch it at all?
I'd watch it there.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's a case of I wouldn't like I'm not going to recommend my wife see this movie.
Yeah.
Maybe that should be my measure, is like whether I'd recommend my wife watching it.
Maybe or maybe not. It all depends.
Yeah. I mean, my measure for everything. Like I would recommend Mad Max Fury Road to her. I would recommend Colossal. I don't think I'd recommend this.
Side note, Mad Max Fury Road. I want to say I am so happy that the first review we did is actually the bar. Yeah. And that was complete accident. It was, we started this podcast on a whim, and I love that 112 episodes later, we are still using that as our fucking yardstick. And
what do you think would happen if we started on
with garbage?
Yeah, like what if we
started with Entourage?
Yeah, if that was our first, I think it was like a second or third or something like that. Imagine if we'd started with Entourage.
I don't know. I would definitely have a heroin addiction.
Do you think we shot our wad too early?
No, it's great. No, it's wonderful because we have this thing, this viable, quantifiable thing that we can measure everything to. I think it's fantastic.
I think it's the best way to describe Mad Max Fury Road. It is the nexus between your and mine. There are still films on your side that you love,
Sure.
I think maybe more than Mad Max.
Yeah.
And there are films on my side that I love more than Mad Max Fury Road. But I mean, I think when we're talking about what's the nexus of things that we think, what's the Venn diagram where both of us collide?
There's just that one. And it's Mad Max Fury Road.
It's just the one.
It's a pinpoint. Oh, man. Well, this has been the only podcast about the war for the planet of the apes.
Bad titles, too. It should have been War for the Apes?
War for the Earth Apes.
Dawn of the Apes. It should have been Rise of the Apes, Dawn of the Apes, War of the Apes.
Win of the Apes.
War for the Apes.
Bananas for the Apes.
Oh.
Ape Escape 2.
Let's not be stereotypical about apes. You know, apes got feelings, yo.
But they like bananas.
They might like a lot of other things.
Well, they could. I had a banana before the show. Actually, that's a weird good coincidence.
You are looking a little apish today.
Yeah, well, it happens. Shahir, when you're not monkeying around, where can folks find you?
You can find me on my website, and well, you won't find me on my website. You can find references to me on my website.
It's literally in the website. You need to hack him free.
This is literal Shahir Day. You can find my website, www.shahirdaud.com. That's SHAHIRDAUD. Matt, when you're on the beach staring at dudes' legs, longingly wondering if they've skipped leg day, where can people tweet you about where can people, you know what, do this week?
Okay.
All you gym buffs out there, I want you to tweet your leg day post-workout selfies to Matt at...
Emperor MSK on Twitter. I need to know that you can support the rest of your body. I worry about it. It keeps me up at night. I feel like Shahir's trying to make this into a sexual thing. It's not. It's it's a men's health thing. And it also makes for great film analogies. You can also send me any weird gym selfies you'd like to Instagram at Skeletor, the number 4 PREZ on Instagram. Or you can find me on Facebook or my website, mattthewkrol.com for my life and works.
I'm calling you out right now. I want you to send a topless gym selfie to Matt Kroll.
Do you think I already don't have that? Do you think that's not something that exists somewhere in my fucking 11-year friendship with this dude? Come on.
I just want new ones.
You want a brand new one.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe sure.
And you can also reach us with your thoughts and comments about whether movie should be screened on Netflix versus IMAX. Or on your iPhone. You can reach us at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter at onlymoviepod. Also right on our Facebook page where we post a lot of this film nonsense that we love to jibber jabber about.
If you think that films should only be viewed on the new touchpad on the new MacBook Pros, the little thing, and you can watch it on the tiny little thing, let us know that too. Let us know.
I only watch movies on an iPod Touch from 2005.
I only watch movies on my Zune. No, I want to know, seriously, guys, write us in. Let us know the weirdest way you've watched a film. I think that'd be really fun.
You know what? Just a side note, the coolest way, that movie, The Descent.
Yeah.
I think in Texas they played it inside a cave.
That's great.
And you had to climb down to get to the screening. And they do screenings of Jaws on the water.
It's wonderful. That's cool. So send us in all that stuff. What are we doing next week? Do we know?
I think it's a movie that we can watch simultaneously on Netflix or on IMAX.
I am a little bit interested in Valerian. I watched a Cara Delevingne YouTube series with hot sauces, and it kind of made me fall in love with her again. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what we decide.
That's not the reason to see the movie. That's a reason to watch her.
We'll see what we decide.
On the basis of that, you should watch Suicide Squad again.
Okay, my logic's broken. We'll see you next week.
When we watch Dunkirk.
Oh, we might be doing that too.
No, we are doing Dunkirk. We're not doing Valerian.
Oh. Okay.
We're doing Valerian.
All right.
If we're doing Valerian versus Dunkirk, what do you think we're doing?
I'm just a little mad at Christopher Nolan right now. But yes, we'll do Dunkirk. All right, we'll see you next week.
Bye.